Hello, everybody. I know I said I'd start at 4:30, but I actually have a lot of it on my hands right now. So you know that special guest that I was talking about? Well, there's actually a few special guests that I have here, and they're so cute. They don't actually have names yet, but where did you get that from? I think they tore up the pee pads, but they're just chilling here. They like iPhones, apparently. They're just little puppies that I'm taking care of for the night. And they've been acclimated to Pluto. Pluto loves them, and he likes to say hi. And there he is right now. Just saying hi to them. But, yeah, basically, I'm here to do a live with Real Dog Rescue. And Real Good Dog Rescue. And they're supposed to be here right now. I'm looking for their request. Oh yeah, but before I do that, I wanted to talk about Rue, the dog that I was saying that I wanted to foster, to adopt. She is currently getting, she just got spayed, and it takes maybe 2 weeks to recover, the stitches. So, she's basically recovering, and then we can meet her and see if she gets along with Pluto. But I met her already, and she's a sweet dog, so I don't think it'll be that difficult to do. But I actually, a little bit about this organization before I actually bring them on. I got to know them through, I was just curious about fostering, and I was like, hey, looking at different rescues and interviewing them and talking to them and being like, what do you do? Where the dogs come from? And this rescue in particular, we got in touch with them, and they actually informed me about the whole process. And even more than that, they kind of opened my eyes to the whole community of rescue organizations in LA. But yeah, let me go live with them right now. Real Good. See if they connect. And we'll answer your questions. I have your questions right here. We typed them out, actually. Hello. Hi. Hi. These are my friends. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves to my people?
I'm Tira.
I'm Naya.
And we're Real Good Rescue.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about, the dogs and dogs that need rescuing. And they're kind of the ones who have informed me on all the factual stuff about the rescue community. And they're the reason why I ended up asking you guys to donate to this cause, because I really, truly believe in it. So thank you for all that you do. And I'm excited to kind of answer their questions.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
we're excited. Thank you for doing this.
No, of course. No, I'm all about the puppies, and actually this is my first time hanging out with puppies, actually, and I'm like so super gentle with them. I don't want to bother them too much,
Well,
but they're so sweet.
Oh my goodness, there they are.
Yeah, I can't think of a name. So these two right here are actually the most rambunctious.
Yes.
We took the white one outside and obviously kept took good eye on her, and she actually was super, and here's Pluto. Super acclimated. She honestly started just running around, so we had to bring her back inside because we were scared we were gonna lose her. But they're all napping together right now.
Aww,
super
so
cute.
Little cuddle bugs.
Yeah, actually I'm getting to know them and their little personalities, and I think I'm better at telling them apart now. But Pluto loves them too. He's not jealous at all.
No.
He's not really sure what to make of them because they're so small. But he'll look at them, lick their ear, and then walk away.
Whenever my dog meets puppies, I say friends, not food. Friends.
Friends.
Not food.
Yeah, exactly. Friends, not toys.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have a lot of questions. They asked a lot of really good questions, and I have the Instagram usernames as well, so that's good. So we can shout outs to the people who asked these awesome questions. So first up, the first question is from Alvaro, and he asked, how did you get to know this organization? I already answered that question. Basically, it was through familiar contact as well as like Instagram. And I feel like Instagram is really good for social networking right now, like nowadays.
For sure.
And then how does the organization find the dogs that they rescued? Talented Bella asked this question.
It's a great question. So there's many different avenues that we find dogs. People send us dogs in the shelters from social media. We visit the shelters. We get calls or messages about animals that have been abandoned.
Like neglect and people that need help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you guys are always on the street, like picking up dogs that might have, like, people call are missing or just walking around in intersections or something, right? Like day and night.
Especially right now because of everything going on with the shelters, and they're not taking in as many animals, and it's harder to get an appointment to take your animal in, that people are letting them go.
Right. Well, and they're also being told, like, if like a Good Samaritan finds a stray or an animal that's been tethered outside that somebody's left and abandoned, and they call the shelter and they're like, I found this animal, I want to bring it to the shelter because of the current situation, they're actually being told to take the animal back where they found it. And that's
terrible.
Crazy.
It's crazy. So, people are reaching out not only to our rescue, but to every rescue because, not everybody has resources to take in a dog that they just find on the street. So yeah, those are a handful of the ways.
Okay, awesome. And now Isabella Merced Colombia asked, how many dogs does your organization help? Well, that's kind of hard to grasp, but do you have like a rough estimate on like a daily basis?
Oh my gosh, that's really hard to answer because we have a lot of dogs under our rescue, but we also spend a lot of our time networking and helping with other dogs. So like before I was even involved in Real Good with Tira, like I had helped just before I even knew I had the ability to be in rescue. And Pluto!
I'm trying to grab a puppy. Hi,
Everybody's making a cameo. We love it.
I'm really hoping they don't pee on me. But
a
little baby out.
Yeah, so we were helping save dogs' lives before we even came together and started this rescue. So, but I think the key point is like how many dogs like are we able to help or can we help? It depends on the resources, right? So the more resources we have, the more fosters, the more adopters, the more people sharing the stories of the dogs and donating, the more dogs we can help.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the babe.
No, I mean honestly, like you guys deal with a lot of dogs for like the age range too. Like you find a lot of puppies that have been born and like people can't take care of them because it was an accidental pregnancy. So it's like an example of that. And and then you find really old dogs, and like I find that the older dogs are really hard to just like get out there and adopted.
I think it sort of depends. We've had it's an interesting experience, at least for me. We just took in, we might have to show you, but Bear, who is a 14-year-old that is now with me in my pack. But we just adopted out our last senior, who was a small senior. But we have some of our bigger dogs that are older, and it seems like small seniors are maybe easier than bigger seniors.
There's also just kind of a demographic of people who want like they want to just like take care of them for the rest of their days, which is so sweet, So we do have some people that are just like the senior people, and then but I think definitely the younger dogs are
more appealing. Yeah.
It just depends on what you want, really, and oh boy, this is really cute though. I don't know how you can just be like, oh, find the puppies. Like that's really hard to say that.
They're really cute until you have them for like 4 or 5 days, and you're like, okay.
You're right. I'm just like the aunt that gets them like occasionally,
and then give them back,
and then you give them back to their parents because it's like a baby. It is like puppies are like babies, and that comes along with a lot of responsibility,
a lot of anxiety. I haven't even had that. So much anxiety. I'm like, I want to protect you from the world.
Amazing.
Okay, I'm trying to see like which
because there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Unless we do like a speed round, I don't know what you guys prefer. But okay, what does it cost to rescue each dog and find a foster mom and dad? Asked Ghost Lord 85. It sounds like a video game username.
What up, Ghost Lord 85? That's a great question, actually, because it really ranges. I mean, I think anywhere from what?
I mean, in the very, very low end, 500 up to, we've had dogs that are over 5,000, right? So it just kind of depends. We had a dog that we rescued who was about to be euthanized from West. Look at the baby.
Oh, no.
It's hard to focus when you're cuddling the baby.
Dude, I can't right now. I feel like I'm a puppy whisperer, but they're so calm, so I feel like they could be like this with anyone.
Yeah, they're like that as soon as you pick them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a dog that we had rescued from West Valley Shelter literally hours before they were going to euthanize her. She was found as a stray. So she wasn't using her leg, so kind of like Pluto. So we weren't sure if she was going to have her leg amputated, and we were able to put her through medical, and she had x-rays, and they found out that she had her femur head out of place. And then they also, so she had some kind of prior trauma, probably hit by a car or something. And then she also had 2 torn ACLs. So
there's 3 surgeries total that she'll need.
We got her through 1 surgery, and she's actually using her leg, which is amazing. But there's still 2 more. I
mean, that will be upwards of $10,000 for everything, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and her, we were really fortunate.
$10,000?
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, there are 3 major surgeries. And then you have all the other regular basic vet care. There's also rehabilitation that comes along with that. And then just standard cost. Yeah. And then, she'll probably need to go be assessed by a trainer and go through that whole process as well, which she has spent time with the trainer already, which is great, but
still needs more.
It still needs more. So if you combine all of that, I mean, easily $10,000 for 1 dog.
Yeah. I mean, we were really fortunate with her. There's a foundation called Goodry's Guardian. That's a foundation that helps with medical with a lot of the dogs that stepped in for her, which allowed us to save her. So we work together with other organizations too.
So they help sponsor, because another question was, who is sponsoring this cause to help the dogs?
So there's organizations that just sponsor medical at Goodry's, and then we have all the public and all the networkers and all the advocates who help donate, right? And everything is tax deductible because it's a nonprofit, which is. So there's all different sponsors. Sometimes we have individuals that want to sponsor just 1 dog, and other times it's just everyone contributing together to help sponsor the dogs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, the little face.
Are there shelters? Are there shelters all over the U.S.? Actually, I've gotten a lot of texts from my friends personally asking this question because they want to also help. Who's that?
Yeah. We have a puppy too. This is one of mine. This is Lady. Sorry, you're only seeing the back of her because she wants to be right in the business. Come back here. Okay. Say hello. Say hello.
Trying to get love.
She's trying to get all the love. Yeah. Okay, Mama.
There are shelters all over the U.S. Yeah, I'm not really sure how it works in some of the other countries. I know that you have a lot of followers from other countries, which I'm sure there are.
I mean, like there's shelters like in the UK, there's shelters in Canada. I mean, there's obviously, there are shelters everywhere, but how they handle things, I mean, it's hard to comment on that because we obviously only know how we work with the shelters here. And then, I mean, I've worked with shelters in New York and Texas as well, which are very similar to how the Los Angeles shelters work too.
Yeah, but there's shelters in every state, in the U.S., and that's a great way that people can get involved, right? So if they can volunteer, one of the biggest things that these dogs in shelters need is exercise, and there's very few volunteers. So like we pulled a dog, Chloe, who's the one that your contributions actually helped, the one who had the medical, the little gray Miss Chloe. Yeah. So she, first off, return of thought.
Their donations got her teeth fixed, right?
They did, dental surgery. She had a little mass in her mouth. Yeah, but she hadn't had a walk in 3 months.
Oh.
When we rescued her, she had not been out on a walk in 3 months because there was no volunteers at the shelter. So that's I mean, if you can imagine how they deteriorate, right? Like, could you imagine if you were stuck in a cage, not able to walk or go outside for 3 months? I mean,
yeah, and at least I have my dog as an excuse to go out like 3 times a day during this quarantine, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's literally like quarantine all day, every day for the dogs in the shelter, because without the volunteers, the staff only has so much capability and so much time, and they probably don't have enough support. And so the volunteers are really crucial at the shelters in helping these dogs. And we've been lucky enough to meet some incredible volunteers and staff at some of the shelters in Los Angeles, and they do amazing work for these dogs. And that's another way that in an avenue that we also find out about dogs that are really needing help from a rescue.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, I think I also, I just have so many questions, but well, the main reason that dogs are getting euthanized in these shelters is because, or that they need to get rescued, is because they've been there too long and they're not socialized enough and they start showing aggression, or is it just a bunch of
that's one reason. Yeah. So they call it kennel presence. They don't appear like presentable in a kennel. But if you think about it, like if you were locked in a jail cell for not doing I know the baby. If you were locked in a jail cell, you know, and you had no exercise and no contact, and all of a sudden you didn't know why you were there, and it's scary, it's loud and it's scary, right? So they start to get stressed, and so they start deteriorating physically and medically. Sometimes they're fearful, they're shut down, they're scared, and dogs can't speak, right? They can't tell us why they're scared, so they shut down, and sometimes they snap or they growl, but that's their way of showing that they're fearful.
Right.
And as soon as they do that, then they're not adoptable, right? So the shelter doesn't feel safe adopting out a dog that's growling and baring its teeth or is stressed out or losing weight. So that's when they get added to the list to be euthanized.
And it is unfortunate too, because it doesn't really give them, how they're showing and their presence in the shelter is not a true indication of what their personality is. And so they actually aren't also being really assessed, I think, in a way that like a trainer, like the trainers that we work, they don't have a fair chance. You know, they get a quick assessment based on being stressed out. I mean, you know how we operate. Like if you're having a stressful day and sometimes you might be a little bit snappy or short or whatever, like dogs have emotions just like we do. So it's not a fair shot. But it's not even the length of time. I mean, dogs can be in the shelter for a week and immediately go to the list. A lot of times, like, I mean, this might come up later, but there's a lot of irresponsible breeders that are happening, and people are breeding dogs, or people are getting dogs and not being educated on what's really needed. And so dogs will end up either as strays or surrendered to the shelter. And so the more dogs coming in means they have to make space. So they have to kill dogs in order to make space for the ones coming in. So there's multiple reasons behind it.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Okay. So we just got down a dark road. We switch it up to when it comes to fostering and adopting, like people who actually want to be a part of this, but it's kind of hard during quarantine. One of the questions is, can you foster before you adopt? Oh no, wait. I need to adopt a dog. What is the procedures? List of dogs, pictures, and details. Can details be provided through email? This is by Isabela Merced AS. They just need to know if they're capable of raising a dog, and how can they, adopt a dog during this quarantine process. Like,
well, we absolutely love people to foster, and we think fostering to adopt is a great way to ensure that dog is the right fit for your family, for your lifestyle. And even before that, we would ask questions and go through to make sure that we think that it's the right fit. A lot of people will come to us and they'll be interested in a dog, and based on asking questions, and if they have other animals, if they have kids, that will give us an indication whether or not that dog is the right fit for that home. And then if we think it's the right fit, then the dog would go into that home and they would do a trial. So they could foster the dog and trial it and make sure that it is the right fit. And then if it is, great, the dog finds a home. And if it's not, then
So there are some dogs in the shelters right now that you can get information on, and you can set up an appointment, to pick up the dog. But because it's so hard right now with actually, you can't really meet the dogs, and a lot of the dogs that are left in the shelter right now, we don't have a lot of information on. It's really like the safest to go through a rescue, and reaching out to a rescue in your area, right? And then they'll get to know you, they'll understand what you're looking for and try to fit the right dog. So they do email, you can call them, you can email, you can DM them on social media. Some are better than others with DMs.
You guys are really good. You guys are really good at answering, and I was surprised because a lot of people just don't even bother to answer the DMs.
We tried really hard to make sure that we're answering everybody.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to do. Speaking, from myself, it's hard to weed out like the authentic ones who are genuinely interested and the ones who kind of aren't. And so, I mean, but for that reason, these guys were rescued.
Yeah.
That are now all like on top of each other sleeping. Oh my gosh.
It's a puppy pile. It's either puppy wrestling or puppy pile. Nap pile.
I love it.
I know. They're really fun. Look at her face.
Okay.
Are you asking your mom to keep all four? Are you the proud owner of 4 new Applehead Chihuahuas?
Oh my god. No, I'm gonna age really quickly if I have all 4 at the same time. Oh boy. Let me see if I were Oh, this is a good question by bbya.shy. I think I said that right. It's just like lack of vowels. Okay. If I were to adopt a dog, what breed would be the best for a small environment? Like if they're in a studio apartment or something.
Yeah, so this is a really good question, because people tend to think, oh, I have a small house or a small apartment, I'll just get a small dog, because you don't have to walk them, or they're fine in small spaces. And Tira lives in this beautiful little cool studio, and she how many dogs?
There's 4. There's 4 dogs in a studio apartment, and 2 are big and 2 are small. But
so it's really, it's more about understanding what the dog's needs are and then matching that with the human, right, and their lifestyle. So there obviously are certain dogs like that you wouldn't want to put in an apartment, like huskies who need to run 20 miles a day. And
unless you're going to take them and run them 20 miles a day.
Yeah, so it's really about understanding the dog and what their needs are. Obviously, if you're a less active person, then picking a dog that's less active, right? Like like an older dog, or a dog that doesn't need as much exercise, or a smaller dog. Yeah.
What breeds of dogs? I mean, that's really rare to find. I feel like all dogs need a lot of exercise, but what dogs do you find are like quite like apartment style dogs? They only need to go out like once a day or something. Is that even?
Well, I think that's a misconception. Yeah. Like an apartment dog doesn't mean they only need to go out once a day, right? It just means that it just depends on what's better way. So it's like, we have a little senior Bear that we just took in, and he's older.
He's 14. And like I took him out with Lady, who will be 10 this year. And so I can take them everybody goes out 4 times a day. Everybody does. But the 2 seniors, because they still need a little bit of exercise and they need to relieve themselves. Like, I mean, I think I go to the bathroom more than 4 times a day. So, but I'll walk them just a little bit, like maybe down the block, around the block, what have you. And then the other 2 who are like 6 and 7, they can go for like 6 or 7 miles. So I might take them for 3 miles in the morning and 3 miles in the evening. So,
So as long as they're getting the right amount of exercise for the dog's needs, it doesn't matter how big or small your house is, right? Because my dogs don't know the difference between whether I'm in a 500 square foot or a 2,000. All that matters to them is how long is their walk, and are they getting to go on that walk, right?
No, okay, thank you. That actually taught me a lot as well. So, so a dog isn't spoiled by the house that he has, spoiled by the walks that he takes.
Exactly.
Can you adopt during this pandemic? Daniela del Real.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of what we talked about. You can. It's more difficult through the shelters, but you can definitely, it's a really good time to adopt through rescues, because we're taking on a lot of dogs.
And we've already done the vetting. You know what I mean? We've already kind of been able to do the assessments to get to know the dog's personalities. If you decide to adopt from a shelter, you can get whatever those shelter notes are, but depending on who at the shelter has been able to spend time with that dog or not, you may or may not have like real-time feedback. Whereas working with a rescue group like ours or anyone's, you'll be able to really get constructive criticism on what that dog, what its personality is and what it needs.
And their true personalities don't even emerge until they've been out of
True.
the shelter for a period of time. Some of them it's 2 weeks, some of them it takes 4 weeks, right? So like they're just opening up and like you just start to get to know the dog. So it allows us to get the dogs out of the shelter, get to know them, and then if they need training, you know, if they need medical, we go through all that, and then they're ready to be placed. So you have the support, right? You have the support of a rescue.
So you just got to stay in touch. So they would, what the procedure would be is they reach out to you via email or
Instagram, website.
Okay, great. And they just kind of, you guys would talk through the process, like their situation, what they're looking for in a dog. And you guys would say, so there's a few dogs, this one has to get spayed still, or this one has to go through a week of training. And that's kind of the process that it's been for me, wanting to foster Root as well. She has they had to check up on her foot at the vet and make sure that she got all her vaccinations and stuff. And then, and now they have to spay her because, you know, it's not safe to have a dog running around who was just recently kind of abandoned on the streets, like not being spayed. So it's, I understand that situation. Okay. They wanted to know if you guys have an adoption center in New York. Martina.nc.
We do not. We're a Los Angeles-based foster rescue. So we don't have a facility here. We don't have a facility in New York. If someone was desperate in New York and really wanted to adopt one of our dogs, it could be a conversation. But what I would say is that there are so many rescues and shelters in New York that need homes. So your best bet would be to reach out to one of those rescues. And I lived in New York for a short time, and I actually worked with 2 different rescue groups in New York. Social Tees Animal Rescue and then Foster Dogs NYC are both really reputable, amazing rescue groups. So if somebody's in New York and is interested in a dog, those are both really great rescues that I would recommend.
It's also a really responsible way to do it because say for any reason it doesn't work out, right? We take the dog all the way to New York and then it's not the right fit, right? Then what? Right. And we take responsibility for our dogs for the rest of their lives. So any dog that's kind of an interesting thing that I don't think a lot of people realize. Any dog that we ever take through our rescue, we are responsible for that dog for the rest of their life. If for any reason we actually make our adopters sign a contract that that dog will never go back to a shelter or be abandoned.
That's so sweet of you guys. That's good. That's reassuring. Okay, wait. I'm like trying to switch the pace without waking them up. Oh no, he woke up.
I just saw Steph's comment. She said, "Yay, my girls." Hi, Steph. That's our other friend that has a rescue here called the Powerful Rescue, and she is also very incredible. And we are lucky enough that we get to work with her and collaborate on a lot and she actually she drove out with us to meet the family where Florentina and pick up the puppies and all that. And she's
on a road trip.
Oh.
Okay, was that where you were before? Was that where you were?
That's that's the little boy.
He's the only boy. Yeah. Whenever we would take one out just to like see if they liked Pluto, whenever we would bring them back in, they all would just like jump on the one dog and their one sibling and just like start licking them. I just thought it was so cute, that little pack mentality. Reminded me of my brothers and I.
I think that's a good point though too to bring up is like when you work together, you can make so much of a bigger impact on things in life, right? So if we all work together, if we're all working individually to save dogs, it's a different impact than if we're all working together, right? And that's what that's what this is all all is how can we all work together? I'm getting a puppy's trying to say hello. You know, like we were saying, like Stephanie from Powerful, we work together, the rescues work together, you know, all the advocates work together, we're working together, like we just met and we're working together to try to raise awareness and save more dogs. And so it's a really beautiful thing. Yeah,
that's definitely just educating people in general. I think just already has made such an impact, you know, with that one situation and with these little babies, and it's super cool to see happen in real time. The next question is, I adopted a dog from the Humane Society and he is terrified to go outside. How do I help him? Nat Ramos 04, so they're born in 2004. So they're very young. So I think this is a great question for like to ask.
Yeah, when you adopt a dog straight from a shelter, Humane Society, a lot of times you don't know all their little things, right? We don't know their past, so that's very common that there's different things that will, you know, cause fear and cause reactivity. Whatever the reason is why their dog is doing that, obviously there was something that happened in that dog's life that we're outside, they associate being outside with something scary, right? So something negative. So we would usually recommend in that type of a situation to work with a local trainer. Find like a local trainer in your area. There's also lots of books and resources for dog training. But that's something where the trainer is going to be working with them, or they're going to be working with their dog to create a more positive experience with going outside, right? So it's going to be like baby steps, taking them outside, making the outside fun, giving them treats, things like that. Yeah. And trying to get to the root of, you know.
I mean, YouTube, like there's a lot of trainers, like even some of the trainers that we work with, they'll actually put out on their like Instagrams or YouTube channels, like tips and things like that to help with training. So we totally get that not everybody is in a position to bring in a trainer, but like Naya said, there's amazing resources in books and online that are positive reinforcement types of training.
That's a lot of patience.
It's a lot
baby
of
steps
patience.
And patience, right? So take them out in a quiet outdoor space, like if they have a yard or they can find a park that's quiet, right? And just spend a little time out there where it's quiet and not so overwhelming, and make it a positive, fun experience.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Last few, like I think this is actually the last question. Okay. When you foster, do you have to get them neutered? Because Joshua the first asked, because I was thinking of getting one and maybe getting puppies from the dog. What do you think? Can you skip the neuter?
Well, we already kind of touched on that, right? We know there's an epidemic of dogs that don't have homes. So when you start to learn more about rescue and about the problems in the shelters and, you know, euthanizing animals, you realize there's so many animals already that don't have homes. So why on earth would you want to add another animal, right? Another dog to the planet when there's so many dogs that already need help? Which is kind of
breeding is tricky though too. Breeding is really, because I once there was a case of someone that had a new litter of puppies, and a lot of them got sick when they were like freshly born, and they all passed. Like it's really, those situations can happen to your
It's a tricky subject, and obviously being in rescue, you know, breeding is not something that we're a fan of. And that's not to say though that all people that are breeding are bad people, but there's a lot of negligence and a lot of people that are breeding just to make money that don't have the welfare of the animal in mind when they're breeding. A lot of
breeds shouldn't be bred, like they shouldn't be combined, right? It's just like not healthy for the dog.
Right. Well, and also like just from a health standpoint for the animal, you know, neutering and spaying animals actually helps them and prevents, like in boy dogs, testicular cancer. You know, like it's been proven that by having them neutered, it actually is a benefit to their health. So not only is it helping not contribute to the epidemic that we're already experiencing with too many dogs and being put down in shelters and neglected and abandoned, but it's also contributing to the health of that dog.
Yeah. And a lot of the dogs that we get calls for, the urgent dogs at shelters, have been dumped. Like I have one of our dogs, Chance, who is this big white polar bear looking dog, one of our foster dogs. So I'm actually fostering at my house. We believe he was being
Probably
bred
adopted.
And then he was dumped in the overnight bin at the shelter. He hadn't been fixed. He had a mass under his body that was bleeding. So a lot of the times they'll keep these dogs, he had scabs all over his face like he'd been kept in a cage and was trying to get out. So they'll keep them in terrible conditions just to make money off of them. And then as soon as they can't make money off of them anymore, either they can't have puppies anymore or they have a medical problem, they don't want to pay for it, they dump them at the shelter. So those are also the dogs that we're rescuing. Yeah, it's There's a lot of reasons. So there's a lot of.
So
yeah.
I feel like we've answered a lot of questions. Some of these questions are similar, so I skipped them because they have like similar kind of undertones and general response. So I think, you know, moving forward, and to the people who've, you know, stayed on this whole time, perdóname porque no, es que ellas no hablan español, pero and we're based in LA, so that's why we're not talking about internationally. But they talked about how you can reach out to other.
Oh my god! And then she froze.
Oh my god! Wait, can you see me? It's like
wait,
right now.
It just froze.
You froze and
it froze on with like the sweetest look on your face and the puppy's mouth yawning.
Well, I hope they can still hear me because I feel like
we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. Well, you know, it's fine as long as the puppy's yawning when I that's the best way to breathe. Okay, well, I feel like we can all contribute, you know, by spreading the word. I have like several videos I made on this topic, and I feel like you can post it to your story, you know, and as well as you guys, if you follow realgood.dog, they have all these posts about specific dogs and their journeys, and you can share it directly to save a specific animal's life. But yeah, and then volunteering at shelters when the quarantine is over, right? How else do you think they can help?
I think there's a big misconception. I saw a lot of messages after you did your post where people said, well, I can't, you know, I don't have money, I can't pay, or I don't have whatever it is. And I think that if everyone understands, like even a single share, so sharing this information, educating other people, like this was so educational for you guys. You guys can share this with other people when you see it. You know, if you have a friend who has a dog that you're concerned about, share, educate, right? And we can continue to spread all of this. So sharing is huge. We can all spread the awareness and educate. And then, of course, you know, volunteering if you can, go to shelters, help walk the dogs. And when you do that, you learn so much more, because that's kind of how we both ended up where we're at today, is just donating our time. And then you start to learn more about what's going on, and then it just makes you want to help more.